The Duke men's basketball roster is starting to take shape after the two most recent transfer commitments by way of Syracuse and Purdue. Duke is putting together quite the squad for this upcoming basketball season.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. It's so great to have you here with us on Wednesday, April 24th, 2024. Excited to talk about everything going on in the life of Duke athletics. We'll take a look at the Duke men's basketball team. Their two newest transfer commitments are good ones by way of Syracuse and Purdue. We're talking about Maliq Brown and Mason Gillis joining the squad for this upcoming season. And we're going to have our guy Kevin Connelly back with us yet again for another awesome episode here of Locked On Blue Devils. If you have not done so already, please be sure to go ahead and follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils. I'm there as well at _JJ_Jackson_. Subscribe to this podcast wherever it is that you get this podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review, and then also watch the show each and every day on YouTube. We got a lot of fun things coming here in the days to weeks to come, so go ahead, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Really do appreciate the support that you give us over there on that platform. So without further ado, I'm very excited to welcome him in. It's our good friend Kevin Connelly, who's back with us once again. And Kevin, we know we've got a couple of new Blue Devils now. We talked last week about potential transfers that could be heading Duke's way, and now it's official. We got two of them on the way.
Yeah, it has to be exciting, right? I mean, you see this mass exit of players. 7 go to the transfer portal. Obviously, 10 in total leave the program, with Kyle Filipowski and Jared McCain going to the NBA, and then Ryan Young graduating. So it was more a lot of bad news than good news, with the exception of Caleb Foster and Tyrese Proctor announcing they were coming back. But certainly good to see a couple go through the basket, to make a basketball analogy, getting 2 transfers into Duke, and three more still to play with. So who knows what John Shire and his staff are going to target next in the portal.
That is well said, man. Absolutely. We love all the basketball puns that we can get. And obviously there are a couple of more players that Duke is going to be in the mix for, because they've got open scholarships. And a little bit later in the program, we'll take a look at the updated scholarship outlook for this basketball team and possible fits. What else could be needed to truly make this Duke basketball team impactful at a big time winning level. But let's talk about the new guys that are now on the squad. The first commit by way of the transfer portal, by way of Syracuse, Kevin, was Maliq Brown, who after 2 years of college basketball eligibility is now making the move to Durham, and he's going to play for Duke this upcoming season.
I am absolutely fascinated by this addition for Duke. Maliq Brown, you have to say he was a very underrated player in the ACC, a Syracuse team that wasn't really near the top of the conference, that a lot of people didn't pay attention to. But when you look more and more about Maliq Brown, how can you not be impressed? I mean, he shoots almost 70% from the field. He started to get a very limited 3-point game this past year, only shooting 19 attempts, but making 7 of them. And then you go a little bit deeper into the numbers. He made nearly 74% of his shots from 2-point range this season. I mean, that's almost unheard of, especially for a player at his size. I mean, he's not somebody who's 7'2" and just cherry picks around the rim. I mean, he's a 6'8" forward. He played a lot of 4, some 5 at Syracuse. You see the numbers right there on the screen for your YouTube viewers. Under 10 points per game, 7.2 rebounds, but 7.2 rebounds per game as somebody who's 6'8" in the ACC. That's a really impressive number.
He's working down there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a Duke team that, yes, they are going to try to go after some top end transfer portal guys, but when you look at how the roster is coming together for next season, they're not going to go after a lot of guys in the transfer portal who are going to command a lot of shots. Maliq Brown is one of those. He's not going to be a guy that wants 15, 20 shots per game. You already have those guys on the roster in Tyrese Proctor, Caleb Foster, obviously Cooper Flagg. Throw a couple more of the freshmen in there that are going to command anywhere between 7 to 9 shots per game. Maliq Brown's going to be a guy that's going to play really good defense. He's going to do the dirty stuff inside. and almost like a protector, an enforcer for Cooper Flagg. We're in the midst of the NHL playoffs. I'll make an NHL analogy. He's going to be the big tough guy that wants to protect these young rookies that are going to be out there on the floor. Like, you're not going to mess with my teammate. You're not going to be able to push this guy around, and he's going to be the guy that comes in. And someone that Duke has really lacked over the past couple of years, I'll throw out a name, Theo John. Remember Theo John, the transfer from Marquette? They're going to look for a couple of players. Maliq Brown, I think, is going to be one of them that fills a Theo John-like role and being that enforcer on the floor where no funny business is going to go on with these high-priced freshmen that are going to be on the court.
And we're excited to have Maliq Brown joining the Brotherhood and to be a part of the mix here. Today on Wednesday, earlier this morning, Duke was able to officially announce the signing of Khaman Maluach, who comes from South Sudan. They're at the NBA Global Academy. And in the statement from head coach Jon Scheyer, he did indicate clearly that Duke will be able to start working with Khaman after he competes at the Summer Olympics with South Sudan, of course, led by former Duke great Luol Deng. With that being said, it's all the more important that Maliq Brown is going to be able to be there throughout the summer with the Duke basketball team and then be able to kind of get those bigs up to speed once they do finally arrive and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad you brought this up because I was going to bring it up that Duke finally announced his official signing. The paperwork has gone through. It's been processed. It's been approved. So now he's officially on Duke's roster for next season. But obviously, it's great for him getting to compete in the Paris Olympics, going up against the best basketball players in the world. However, when you look at Duke and their potential for winning a national championship next year, he's not going to be now in Durham until August, which really puts him behind the eight ball, in my opinion. We talked about this a little bit a couple of years ago with Tyrese Proctor coming over from Australia, got in late, and you saw a little bit of that rust and not really knowing the system early in the season. Wonder if that's going to be the same with him. Obviously plays a different position at center. I guess a little bit easier to learn all the plays and positioning, although he's still very new to the game of basketball. But I do think it is interesting how Duke is going to work him into the rotation since he's really not going to be on campus with the team until August.
And this is a spot where we want to be incredibly selfish, right? But who are we to fault someone who's got the opportunity to compete in the Olympics of all events? So really excited about that. But again, back to Maliq Brown, all the more opportunities for him to kind of come in and possibly a larger role than he might have expected even when he goes and transfers over to Duke. Given the experience, given that he's going to be around the guys, had that 26-point outing against Duke in Cameron as a member of Syracuse this past season. We mentioned the toughness and all those intangibles that he kind of brings. He brings experience, man. That's just such a big thing to go through the summer with this talented freshman class that Duke has.
Yeah, you mentioned his career-setting performance in Cameron against Duke with 26 points, named to the All-ACC defensive team. And I mentioned played a lot of 4 and 5, mostly 5 at Syracuse, despite his undersized 6'8". But he's the first player in ACC history to lead the conference in steals as a center. So this is a absolute defensive stalwart that Duke is getting. Yes, he is a little bit undersized, but man, he certainly commands things down low on the defensive end. And when you look at the roster that Jon Scheyer is putting together, this could be one of the best defensive Duke teams we've seen maybe ever. We know Tyrese Proctor is a great defender. You mentioned Khaman. He's an outstanding shot blocker around the rim. Maliq Brown, a good defender. Cooper Flagg is an outstanding defender. Obviously, it goes underrated for how good he is offensively, but this could be a Duke team that is one of the best we've seen defensively next season.
That's quite the note you're bringing our way, Kevin. Good stuff by you, man. Maliq Brown, first center in ACC history to lead the league in steals. Pretty impressive stuff. What about Mason Gillis, another recruit for the Duke basketball team? And we got to get Kevin's thoughts on Mason Gillis after we take our first time out here on today's show. Locked On Blue Devils here today, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. This, of course, is America's #1 sportsbook and our good friends, as we're now in playoff time for the NBA and NHL. Baseball season's off and running in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. We'll get ready to move forward here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Kevin Connelly from Ball Durham is here with us on today's show. Before we go any further, Kevin, if you will, tell us a little bit about balldurham.com.
Well, we got everything you could possibly want on the offseason news over at Ball Durham. We're covering all these transfer portal prospects. We're covering our high school prospects getting ready to come in to Duke. NBA playoffs underway. NFL draft is scheduled to begin on Thursday. So we're just about over everything you could possibly want in terms of Duke basketball.
Without a doubt, really excited to see the freshmen make an impact on this Duke basketball team after the showcases that we've been seeing, and a good point by you to go over to Ball Durham to read a little bit more about that. All right, another new commit for this Duke basketball team, Mason Gillis entering the fold for the Blue Devils. Tell us a little bit about Mason Gillis, if you will, Kevin.
Well, Mason Gillis, coming over from Purdue, obviously made a run to the national championship game this year. Expect him to come off the bench for Duke. He didn't start a game for Purdue this season. He was named as the Big Ten Sixth Man of the Year, also an honorable mention selection to the All Big Ten team. Three-point shooter. That's kind of the way you do it. I mean, the stats kind of tell the story for Mason Gillis. Averaged just under 7 points per game this year and just under 4 rebounds, but he shot 47% from three-point range. He was 58 of 124 on the season. He did go scoreless in the national championship game. And in 3 of the 6 games Purdue played in the NCAA tournament this year, he did not score. So he's a little bit of a streaky scorer in that aspect. But another guy, 6'6", he has good size. He's a good defender. And not a guy that's going to command a lot of shots. You're a prototypical 3-and-D guy where he's going to come in, he can hit some three-point shots, and he's going to play some good defense off the bench. So I think it's another under-the-radar quality addition that Duke made.
And Duke needs to make additions like that because, again, there's only one basketball. There's only so many minutes in a game to kind of go around. And for Mason Gillis, in the 15 to 20, 25 minutes a night role from time to time, I'm sure he'll be able to plug right in and factor in. But still, at the same time, Duke's in a position to feature somebody like Cooper Flagg, who's as good as advertised, to feature their returning guards and Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster as well. Like those guys need the opportunity to play and get some shots up and that sort of thing. And I think Mason Gillis is going to be perfectly fine with that.
Now, I know all your viewers probably remember Jack Golke from Oakland, the guy who was able to upset Kentucky in the NCAA tournament this year. And everyone watching that game, and you realize this kid just doesn't shoot 2-pointers. All he does is shoot 3-pointers. Mason Gillis is a little similar to that. Now, obviously, he doesn't take as many or make them at a high rate that Golke did, but 75% of his shot attempts this past season for Purdue were 3-pointers. So he doesn't go inside the arc very much. He's going to stay outside the arc. And again, shooting almost 50%. So when they go up, more often than not, they go in.
Who are some of those young guys you think on next year's squad that can benefit from being around a guy like Mason Gillis, who, again, this is going to be his COVID year of eligibility. So he has seen just about everything in the sport, from making it to the title game, from being upset as a 1 seed that Purdue was and that loss to Fairleigh Dickinson. I mean, he's seen it all. So who do you think are some of those younger guys that could benefit from having him around?
Well, I think the first one that comes to mind is Isaiah Evans, right? The freshman out of North Carolina. He's tall, he's lanky. You compare his body image to Brandon Ingram. But is he a one and done? I don't know. He certainly needs to add some muscle, in my opinion, to his body and still build out his frame. He has all the talent in the world, but being around a player like Mason Gillis that can show him how to do the dirty work, how to go inside, how to defend at a high level. And then obviously Isaiah Evans, he has shot-making capabilities from just about all over the floor, and he's obviously more athletic than Gillis as well. So that's the first name that came to mind when you asked that question. I think Isaiah Evans would bode really well from being around him and soaking up the knowledge that he has. Then you can go to a player like Darren Harris or Con Nepal as well. Shooters that certainly want to round out the other aspects of their game. So I think those 3 guys, specifically Isaiah Evans, could really benefit from being around Mason Gillis next year.
I'm excited to see it all come together. I'm excited to get Mason Gillis there in Durham, to see more photos of him in that Duke gear, get used to seeing him outside of the Purdue uniform that he donned for 4 seasons already, and to see him kind of plug in and play with this Duke basketball team. So where can Duke kind of go from here? That's a big question that a lot of people are asking, and that's how we'll wind down our episode of Locked On Blue Devils. We'll provide some answers to that question when we come back after this final timeout here on today's show. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at Gametime. This is one of my absolute favorite places to find tickets. Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer that it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guaranteed, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. You can go ahead and save up to 60% off buying last-minute seats for sports, concerts, comedy, theater events, and so much more. All-in pricing up front where you can see numbers right when you check out. There are no surprise fees that pop up for you. You also have awesome seat views where you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Go ahead and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Also want to tell you about our friends at Monopoly Go. I am quite the competitive person. I really do have a competitive side. I'm sure that we all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it by now. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you could play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is that you get to play with your friends. I get to play with my friends as well on Monopoly Go. I'm known to charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly. I can also heist their vaults of riches for myself. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You could team up with those friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store or in Google Play. All right, let's keep it moving here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Again, I'm JJ Jackson, joined today by my pal Kevin Connelly, the site expert for Ball Durham. If you're watching with us on YouTube, we've now got a look at the scholarship outline and situation for this Duke basketball team going into next season. 3 scholarships now to work with for the 2024-2025 season. We've color-coded it by what year in school these players are. So Duke's added some upperclassmen with Gillis and Brown in the transfer portal in recent days. What other type players do you think would really make this quite the roster, Kevin?
Well, I think the biggest thing that you look at and you see, they need a guard, right? They need a guard that can handle the basketball to come off the bench, since Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster are going to be your starting point guard and shooting guards coming into next season. There's really no depth behind them and guys that can handle the basketball. So I think that is your number one spot. And I also look at this roster, and obviously you want to try to project who your starting 5 is going to be. Is the 3 spot a little bit weak, the small forward spot a little bit weak in terms of a starter? I think it might be. Proctor and Foster are obviously going to start 1 and 2. Cooper Flagg, he could play the 3, he could play the 4. It feels like he would start at the 4, in my opinion. And then obviously we talked about Khaman. I right now I'd pencil him in to start at the 5. I mean, when you're 7'2", and you're a projected top 3 pick in the 2025 NBA draft,
that feels like a good fit.
Yeah, that you're going to start at center. So then it leaves the small forward position open. And obviously John Shire can get creative. You could start Cooper Flagg at the 3 and start Maliq Brown at the 4. You could start Isaiah Evans at the 3 and start 3 freshmen, a sophomore and a junior. Do you really want to do that? Or do you want to bring a player like Isaiah Evans off the bench to be a 6th man? Do you want to start Mason Gillis? I don't really know. He didn't start at all last year on a team that went to the national championship game. So definitely I think one of the 3 vacant scholarship spots should be for a backup guard, a ball handler, that's someone that could come in, give you anywhere between, 12 to 17 minutes per game, and just give Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster a rest. And then I think you're going to need another wing, someone that could potentially slide in and start at the 3. And then who knows what you do with that last scholarship opening.
Without a doubt. I mean, I think the ball handling is kind of the big thing that a lot of people are talking about right now. When you've got Foster and Proctor returning, you no longer have someone like Jeremy Roach on next year's squad. Jared McCain, of course, would have been back, but he decides to declare for the NBA draft. I think a ball handler is kind of the next big move for this Duke team to add a little bit of guard depth as well. And then worth noting, look, we have fun with this. Obviously, we're not going to see a world in which in 2027, 2028, Cooper Flagg and Khaman Maluach and those guys are going to be seniors playing basketball at Duke. They'll be destined for greatness at the next level. But point here, we haven't really seen a lot of activity yet in the future freshman recruiting classes, and that's going to come in these next few weeks. We'll get closer to the summer circuit opening up, and really excited to see some of the players that Duke might be targeting there as well, Kevin.
Well, yeah, and I think Duke and their fans are also realizing the harsh reality of the new day and age in college basketball, that your roster is pretty much built on the transfer portal. Now, I know John Shire has said late this season that they're still going to go after the top-ranked freshmen, and they're still going to be a major focal point in their roster. But obviously last year it was an anomaly. Nobody transferred out of this Duke program, and you see 7 guys hit the portal, a couple of freshmen after one season jump in and leave. TJ Power and Sean Stewart, obviously the first 2 that come to mind. But that's the new day and age in college basketball. If you're going to have freshmen, and I'm sure it's going to happen after next season as well with some of these freshmen that don't get as many minutes as they would have hoped, and they're going to hop in the portal and go somewhere else where minutes are more available. That's just how college basketball is nowadays. So Duke fans are learning that the hard way, and I think that's a reason why you're seeing Duke maybe not as aggressive right now with next year's high school senior class and offering them and having any commits than they've been in previous years, just because it's a new day and age in college basketball. But one name I did want to touch on before you wrap up here is Kobe Brea, the transfer from Dayton. I mean,
yeah,
man, oh man, could you get any more blue bloods on his final list? Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, Kentucky, and UConn. I mean, it doesn't get much bluer than that.
Pretty great
for teams that are recruiting him. And I think he could slide in. He came off the bench at Dayton. He could slide in as your starting 3, 6'6" wing, who absolutely can shoot the lights out of a gym. Almost 50% from 3-point range this season. I know some people probably watched him in Dayton throughout the year and in the NCAA tournament, and he was just awesome. So that's just one other transfer recruit to keep your eye on going forward, and we'll see how aggressive Duke wants to be in pursuing him.
Without a doubt. Excited to see what Duke's pursuit of these remaining transfer portal guys look like. And then also the intrigue out there, Kevin, of okay, 7 players go into the portal, or 7 players depart on this team for Duke basketball. No, 7 went into the portal, and then you count in Filipowski and McCain. I got my numbers twisted up there in my head. Where do they end up? That's always kind of interesting to sort of think about. Mark Mitchell off to Missouri, Jeremy Roach to Baylor. Connor O'Neill from Devils Illustrated was on the program yesterday and mentioned the really big interest between Jalen Blakes and a school like Davidson have connected over the past few days. And TJ Power is getting a lot of phone calls from ACC schools. Like, that could be a move as well, where we see some of these guys competing in the league now against Duke.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. And obviously it hasn't happened yet between Duke and North Carolina. But, I mean, we've seen this offseason players go from Ohio State to Michigan and vice versa, and the same thing with Auburn and Alabama. So, like, rivalries aren't a thing when it comes to the transfer portal. Players are going to go.
You're right, yeah.
Yeah, players are going to go to the best option they have for them. Now, will it happen between eventually Duke and North Carolina? I don't know. I feel like the tendencies right now would say yes. But as you mentioned, it feels like perfect fit for Jeremy Roach at Baylor. He'll start in. He'll be a starting guard for a Baylor team that's going to have national championship aspirations. They have VJ Edgecombe, who was a really prioritized high school recruit for Duke, who picked Baylor over Duke. And then Mark Mitchell, he's going to try to be a cornerstone in what is a major rebuild at Missouri, from going to the NCAA tournament and winning a game 2 years ago to now last year not winning a game in the SEC and being one of the worst power conference teams in the country. So he's going to try to help the rebuild for the Tigers, and then Jeremy Roach is going to try to win a national championship with Baylor. So certainly interesting to see where the other guys will end up as well. I think Sean Stewart, in my opinion, is the most interesting, because obviously you saw the potential that he has, can jump out of a gym. If someone could teach him defensive positioning, feels like it could be great there. So I'm really interested to see where Sean Stewart lands.
I think and then back to Jalen Blakes and kind of what Connor O'Neill was talking about on yesterday's show with us from what he's been hearing and talking to folks connected to the program. Blakes has a Duke degree now. That is incredible. Got to play 3 years being a part of the program or the Brotherhood. If you go to a school like Davidson, that's an awesome fit as well. Like, I think there is a great opportunity for playing time for somebody like Jalen Blakes in this next move that he makes.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. And that's kind of what I highlighted in one of our pieces going back to the end of the season and projecting who was going to stay, who was going to go. Just made the most sense for Jalen Blakes to leave. You get the Duke degree in 3 years. I think that would mean he has 2 years of eligibility remaining, which is great for him. And then you go on, you get a graduate degree at a really good mid-major because he has game, and your minutes would go double or even triple.
Awesome stuff. Excited to see new transfers coming to Duke, where they end up, what freshmen or high school seniors I should see Duke's going to start recruiting on the circuit, all of that and more. And we can read about it, of course, over at balldurham.com. Kevin, it is always a pleasure to have you on the program here with us. One final time, promote your work, if you will.
So as you said, balldurham.com, you got everything that possibly want on our Blue Devils. And then on Twitter, you could follow us at ball_Durham.
That guy, Jason Tatum, following up a triple-double in Game 1. He's got Game 2 coming up a little bit later tonight in the NBA playoffs, and you're following along. 12 Blue Devils currently playing in the playoffs as well, Kevin, and you've got it all covered, right?
Yes, we do.
That's awesome. All right, we'll talk to you again soon, Kevin. Thank you.
Thanks, JJ.
All right, that's Kevin Conley again at Ball Durham. Check him out at ball_Durham and at Kevin Conley 24 on X. That'll do it for today's show. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.